Good morning, everybody. My name is Kerry Williams, Deputy Monitoring Officer. Can I welcome everyone to the meeting, which is a multi-location meeting. The meeting will be live streamed and recorded and will be available for viewing after the meeting. Should the live stream fail, the meeting will continue and a recording will be available through the Council's website following the conclusion of the meeting. Can I remind members that translation facilities are available? If you want to make use of this facility, please select the English language option of the microphone delegate unit if you're in the Council chamber, and for those attending remotely by clicking on the audio settings tab and selecting English. For those wanting to speak, please press your microphone push to speak button, which is located at the bottom of the microphone console. Similarly, for those attending remotely, press the push to speak tab. Your names will appear in a queue and I will take the speakers in turn as I consider appropriate. Do not use the yellow hand function. This should only be used if you want to come in with a point of order. In order to maintain your place in the speaker queue when asking a question, please leave your microphone on until you have received a response and asked any supplementary questions. As we get used to the new conferencing system, it's worth noting that if your microphone is red, you are an active speaker, but should wait until I invite you to speak. Those who are in the queue will appear green at first, but will change to red as you move up the queue. For those attending remotely, please note that those in the chamber will be unable to use the chat function. Remote attendees, if you do need to leave the meeting temporarily, please pop a message in the chat function so that the Democratic Services Officer is aware and then let us know when you return. I expect everyone present and participating in the meeting to conduct themselves appropriately and be respectful to each other, and that applies to members, officers, and any members of the public or press who are attending. Turning now to the agenda, and item 1 is appointment of a chair. Do we have any nominations this morning?
May I propose? Oh, beg your pardon. May I propose that Ian White continue as chair, please?
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? Who's next on the... Nigel, can we bring you in?
Good morning, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Nigel, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'd firstly like to pay tribute to Ian for the last year in office and thank him very much for his support in relation to that matter before I move to nomination. I think appointing chairs for GAC committee during the course of a 5-year election is a bit like doing 5 circuits once a year. And on the basis that we've only done 3 circuits, Ian, I'm going to propose Ian continues in office for GAC for the coming year as well, because you've not yet finished the race, Ian. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have a proposer, we have a seconder. Do we have any further nominations? No, in that case, can we proceed to the vote? Can we open the vote, please? We're doing it electronically, sorry, Councillor. Okay. Has everybody had an opportunity to vote? Okay. We've got everybody on screen. Okay, so we leave it for how many more we got? Okay, can we close the vote? Okay, congratulations. Ian, would you like to come and join us? That's been carried. Councillor Ian White has been appointed for a further term.
At the last meeting. Yeah. Okay, well. Thank you everyone for your continued support. I look forward to working with you all in the coming year. I'd like now to move to agenda item 2, which is the appointment of Vice Chair. Do we have any nominations, please? No nominations? Michael, Councillor Michael.
I was wondering whether Councillor Stephen would consider be Vice Chair.
Sorry, the sound was breaking up there. Okay, Councillor Stephen has indicated to us during our pre-meeting for this meeting that he did not wish to stand again for a fourth year. Councillor Susan.
Can I first congratulate you, Ian, on getting the position of chair again?
Thank you.
I'm just wondering if Councillor Mike Smith would like that position. I've not talked to him, but maybe that's something he would consider. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Michael?
I do thank you, thank Susan for that, but unfortunately due to work commitments, if there was any long, I really struggle with morning meet.
Councillor Michael, can you turn your try turning your camera off? We're not hearing anything from you. Oh, it's disappeared. Keeps going off. Are there any other nominations? No?
Yeah. I think in the absence of any nominations on this occasion, we will have to proceed to perhaps defer the item to the following meeting. And obviously, in the meantime, if there are any occasions when we're meeting in the absence of the chair, we'll defer to the rule of appointing somebody who is present on that occasion. It would have to be an independent person. So can I ask for a proposer to that effect and a seconder, and then we'll take it to the vote.
Phil, thank you very much. And a seconder, please.
Chair, I'm more than happy to second that proposal. That would postpone it to our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Susan. And can we have a show of hands and support?
Show of hands, a show of hands, yeah. Yeah, that's carried, Chair.
Nigel seems to have disappeared. Okay, thank you very much. Before we move on to item 3, apologies, can I just repeat my thanks for your support for the coming year. I would also like to note my personal thanks and the committee's appreciation of Councillor Stevens' contributions over the past 3 years. And finally, but equally importantly, I would like to welcome Councillors Susan and Councillor Sam to the GAC. I hope you enjoy it. I'm sure you will. It's great fun. And I promise that we do not always have agendas as long as today's one. Although if you've looked at the work programme for September, you'll see it's lining up to be even longer, but we'll try and fix that. And hopefully we'll get through today fairly efficiently, but if things go quite slowly, then we'll call a break at an appropriate point, or if someone puts up their hand. So moving on now to item 3, apologies for absence. Sally, do we?
Yeah, just one apology, Chair, Councillor Stephen Price.
Okay, thank you. And item 4, which is declarations of interest. Does anyone have any? Usually Nigel comes in here, but we seem to have lost Nigel. Okay, so nothing to report there, and I'm unaware of any urgent matters. Yeah. So quickly moving on to item 6, which is the minutes of the last meeting. As you'll be aware, they're not up for debate, but we are required to confirm that they are an accurate reflection of our last meeting. Can I, if everyone's happy with the accuracy, then can I ask for a proposer in support of the minutes? Thank you, Phil. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Michael. Oh, thank you. And can we just have a vote by show of hands, please? Welcome back, Nigel. Okay, well, we're on to item 7 now, to review the Governance and Audit Committee Forward Work Programme, which is on pages 10 to 17 of the pack. Does anyone have any points to raise or questions? No? Okay. Oh, Nigel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to check on the action plan post peer review, the Yola report back. Is the April 26 item on the agenda, please, Chair?
Sorry, can you just repeat?
Yeah, can I just check that the item in April 26 is the post-peer review action plan report back from Yolo.
Yes? Yolo? Yolo's here and is nodding in
Is a thumbs up? Yeah, fine.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. Other than that, no questions or points to raise. So can I ask for a proposer in support of our work programme, please? Thank you, Councillor Michael. And a seconder, please. Councillor Liz, thank you. And finally, can we vote by a show of hands? 6, 7. Yep, that's unanimous. So thank you for that. Moving on now to item 8A, which is the internal audit strategy and annual plan for 2025-26. Are you taking
good morning.
this one, Keith?
Can you all hear me?
Keith, yeah.
Yeah, good. Yeah, this is the internal audit strategy and annual plan for 25-26. Just to inform you, from the 1st of April 25, internal audit will be working to new internal audit standards. These are a combination of the Global Internal Audit Standards, or GIAS, and the application note GIAS in the UK public sector, and the Code of Practice on Governance of Internal Audit. In accordance with GIAS in the public sector, the Head of Audit has a responsibility to prepare a strategy and annual plan. This report provides the Governance and Audit Committee with the strategy, which is attached in Appendix A, and the annual plan for 25-26, which is attached in Appendix B. The mission of internal audit is to enhance and protect organisational value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice and insight. The strategic plan has been prepared to cover a 3-year period, 25-28, and it sets out the internal audit's objectives for that period. The strategy has been developed to ensure that the work of internal audit is aligned with the assurance needs of the Council and its corporate aims and objectives. The internal audit structure, the provision of the service will be delivered by a team of 7 officers, which equates to 6.02 full-time equivalents, with the available audit resource standing at 1,729 days. It is considered that there is sufficient skills and expertise within the service to provide the full range of audits contained in the annual plan and to manage the service efficiently and effectively. Strategy and annual plan 25-26, as I mentioned, it is the responsibility of the Head of Audit to produce a risk-based internal audit plan for the year. As I mentioned, this is contained in Appendix B, and the actual strategy has a summary of the annual plan in paragraph 5.4. This annual plan does not provide a definitive list of projects that will be carried out in the year, but it provides the latest projects that have been identified as the main priorities at that moment. The assurance mapping process was discussed with directors and heads of service during the 25-26 consultation process. Progress against the annual plan will be kept under review, obviously, and it will be reported to the Governance and Audit Committee on a quarterly basis. There are a number of performance measures included within the strategy. They are detailed in paragraph 6.1 of the strategy, and they are based on best professional practice to determine the effectiveness of our work. And additionally, in compliance with GIAS, the risks and opportunities, to support a strategy and to assist with identifying further opportunities for improvements, a SWOT analysis was undertaken, included in paragraph 7.1. And the main actions to come out of that SWOT analysis was to utilise technology, including data analytics, a continued commitment to professional development, to increase proactive counter-fraud work, and to ensure that there is appropriate succession planning. Just like to refer you to paragraph 5.1, which are Councillor Chris's observations on the strategy and annual plan. And the recommendation is that the committee is requested to consider and approve the internal audit strategy and annual plan for 25-26. I'll happily answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Keith. David? David?
Yeah. Hi, Keith. Thanks for that. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Yeah. Just going to the SWOT analysis that you carried out, say increasing counter fraud work. I think at the last.
Oh, David? David, we can't get any sound from you.
If you just press your push to speak button again, there we go.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. On page 31 on the SWOT analysis, you're going to increase the counter fraud work. The days increased on that in the plan, presumably, have they, Keith?
The number of days on counter fraud work and NFI work has remained the same. There has been a a reduction in the number of days that we've had on reactive work in the last couple of years. So hopefully that work can be used in more counter fraud work.
Yeah, and you're going to do that cost benefit analysis on the National Fraud Initiative work as well. I know that's across the organisation, so that may free up more time possibly for counter fraud work. If you focus.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Councillor Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Keith. It's more of just a reminder for those new members and just a bit of confirmation from yourself, Keith. In the past, we have suffered with low staffing, but we've had 6.02 now. But are you comfortable that staffing's in place and them numbers are going to stay pretty consistent going forward now? Because I know in the past there was a difficulty with retention or something like that of staff within the team. And sorry, I'll let you answer that one. Sorry.
Yeah, so obviously the annual plan for 25-26 is based on that 6.02. We have just recently, last week, lost a member of staff. An auditor has moved within the authority, so the next offer is obviously to commence recruitment to make sure we can get somebody in as soon as possible.
Oh, okay. And then secondly to that, what was my other point? Sorry. No, I've forgotten already. Sorry. If it comes back to me, it was just stuff that has happened in the past. I'll come back to that if I remember. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Michael. Nigel, you have a question?
Yeah, just picking up on where Michael was going, I think. Keith, is there any benchmarking of the full-time equivalents that typical councils similar to ourselves would have that is a standard that would sort of perhaps reassure Michael and myself, for example, that you've got the right level of staffing in place? I've got a couple of other questions, but that would be a first one, Keith.
Yeah, as I mentioned previously, really the Welsh local council benchmarking really came to a close in 2022. The information after that was pretty inconsistent. So we are benchmarking within other local authorities currently in Wales, but just in terms of our North Wales Internal Audit Group, our full-time resource of 6.02 is favourable to the other North Wales authorities. I can get further information if that would help.
Well, through you, Chair, I sense that we're favourable. It's just seeking that reassurance, if you can, externally, Keith, about levels of staffing. Just got a couple of questions on the strategy and the audit plan, Keith. I would prefer in future reports if we could try and separate the strategy from the annual plan more clearly. I mean, the strategy cover report, which you've got in, talks about a 3-year strategy initially for 25-28. And then when you get down to the end of page 22, you talk about Appendix A, the internal strategy only for 25-26. And then you talk about a strategic 3-year plan. And there's a confusion about terminology, I think, around strategy as opposed to the annual plan. Now, the annual plan and the approach that you've got, which I welcome, is making a very flexible annual plan that adjusts having regard to circumstances as you work your way through the year. And I think that I'm not expecting the 3-year strategy to change an awful lot year on year, but I am expecting the annual plan to change year on year. And I wonder if you keep them separate, whether it's easier then to update and keep live your annual plan without interfering with the entirety of the document, which is the combined document you've got at the moment. So I just pose that as being a possibly way to strengthen the presentation of both strategy and plan on future years, Keith.
Okay. Yeah, we'll bear it in mind.
Thank you, Nigel. Councillor Michael?
Apologies, I was trying to find my notes. Please, I will apologise in advance in case it doesn't refer to previous meetings that we've had, but I've got somewhere in my memory, possibly for this meeting, that we were informed that we were probably doing too many audits and that we were or bringing too many things to the meetings. I'm trying to remember from how far back it might have been. And I was just wondering, is there externally with other authorities a minimum level, and sort of like to a point where your team are looking too much into things. I know our job in this committee is to look through departments and reports and audits, but are we similar to other local authorities? Do we go over the top if that was the case? And apologies if that information is totally incorrect, but I'm sure it came from this meeting once upon a time that we were possibly carrying out too many.
I'm not sure if it was a question too many reports coming to audit committee, not from internal audit, but overall, because I don't think there's ever been an issue with us undertaking too many reports. Of course, we set an annual plan, and then our main performance indicator is the percentage of the annual plan that we actually complete, which I think was about 80% this year. So I don't think there's ever been a question that there's been too many audit reports completed.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Does anyone have any other points to raise or questions? No? Okay, so we need to look for a proposer in support of the strategy and plan. And a second. Thank you, Phil. And seconder, Councillor Michael. Thank you very much. And I need to ask for the vote to begin now. This is not a vote by hand. This is an electronic vote. So please, can you vote now? No, never. I can't see them now with my glasses on. That one. Yep. So, can you close the vote, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8B, and I think this is you again, Keith. Item 8B, the internal audit charter for 2025-26.
Yes, this is an annual report that comes to the committee, which is the internal audit charter for 25-26. Sorry to be a bit repetitive here, but from April 25, internal audit will be working to the new internal audit standards, which are the global internal audit standards, GAIAS, and the application note GAIAS in the UK public sector. We're not expected to achieve compliance with these standards as of the April the 1st, but to achieve conformance within the year. And we are currently updating the audit manual, completing training logs and things like that. The head of audit and procurement has a responsibility to prepare a charter that conforms with GAIAS in the UK public sector. This report provides the Governance and Audit Committee with a charter 25-26, which is attached in full in Appendix A. In accordance with GAIAS, the head of audit must develop and maintain an internal audit charter that specifies at a minimum the purpose of internal auditing, the commitments to adhering with GAIAS in the UK public sector, to include a mandate, including the scope and types of services to be provided, and the organisational, positional and reporting relationships. The Charter establishes the services position within the Council, including the nature of the Head of Audit and Procurement's functional reporting relationship with the Committee and Senior Management Team. It authorises access to records, personnel and physical properties relevant to the performance of engagements, and it defines the purpose of internal audit activities. The change for the Charter this year, in accordance with the standards, is the inclusion of a mandate, and this is the statutory requirements and authority of internal audit, which is set in the Accounts and Audit Wales Regulations 2014. The Charter includes our responsibilities, which is the evaluation of adequacy and effectiveness of the organisation's governance, risk management and internal control processes in relation to the organisation's defined goals and objectives. The Charter also includes a code of ethics and professionalism, which again is new with the new standards. The Codes of Ethics and Professionalism, Domain 2, outlines the behavioural expectations for professional auditors, conforms with the principles of integrity, objectivity, competency, due professional care and confidentiality, instills trust in the profession of internal auditing and creates an ethical culture. Organisational independence is obviously included in the Charter also. The Charter establishes the services position within the Council, including the nature of the Head of Audit's functional reporting relationship with the Committee and Senior Management Team. The Head of Audit and Procurement has additional roles and responsibilities beyond internal auditing that could impact on the independence and performance of internal audit. Appropriate safeguards are in place to protect the independence of internal audit and to support conformance with the standards. As I mentioned, the staff resources for the year, a team of 7 officers, 6.02 full-time equivalents, and man days of 1,729 days. The strategy and annual plan has just been presented, obviously. This annual plan does not provide a definitive list of projects that will be carried out in 25-26, but it provides the latest projects that have been identified as the main priorities at that moment. The Governance and Audit Committee will be advised of performance against the annual plan on a quarterly basis. We've also set a number of performance indicators, which are included in paragraph 10.3 of the Charter. And quality assurance and improvements. We maintain a quality assurance and improvement programme that covers all aspects of the internal audit activity. Internal assessments are undertaken annually, and we have an external assessment conducted every 5 years by a qualified independent assessor from outside the Council. Councillor Chris's comments are again in paragraph 5.1, and the recommendation is that the committee is requested to consider and approve the internal audit charter for 25-26. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Can I please? I was about to invite questions or comments. Councillor Susan.
Thank you, and thank you very much for your report, Keith. On page 36, 3.8, Staff Resources 2025-2026, did you say that one of your team had now left? Because you've got a team of 7. Can you still plan and manage the service effectively if somebody has left? Thank you very much.
Yeah, an auditor left the service, moved within the council, just completed on Friday. So we will have to start our recruitment process now. Like I mentioned earlier, the plan has been set for 1,729 days, which included that auditor. So we do have an annual contingency of 100 days within the annual plan. So that will be used to cover that period. But obviously, it's important we recruit as soon as possible.
Cheers. Just a quick question on that. So Keith, you don't consider this to be a risk, is that correct?
Yeah, it's not currently an issue.
Okay, thank you. Nigel?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Keith, it's normally on this item, I would be starting by saying what a total waste of time at member and officer level the charter is on the basis of having to produce it annually. On this occasion, I'm not going to say that because clearly with GIAS having arrived, there's been some fundamental change and requirements on it. I understand that under the new regime, this charter will run for several years, and there'll be annual amendments to it rather than have to totally revisit the charter. Is my understanding correct on this, Keith? Please, thanks.
Yeah, I think in the previous public sector internal audit standards, I think there was just a requirement for an annual review, and I think it does actually say that it needs to be approved by the Governance and Audit Committee as well. So I suppose it depends really on how many amendments are made to the charter. And I suppose in previous years, the annual plan was actually included with the charter, so obviously it came on an annual basis. But now that we've got a separate strategy with the annual plan, then there's less need for the charter to come annually.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, I'm much happier with that regime than the previous one, Keith. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any more questions, observations? No? In which case, as Keith mentioned, we're being asked to approve the internal audit charter for 2025-26. And in that regard, please can I ask for a proposer and support? Thank you, Councillor Michael. And a seconder, please. David, thank you very much. And once again, we're going to electronically vote. So can we open the vote now? I think you can close the vote now, please. And that is unanimous. So the audit charter for 25-26 is approved. Now we're moving on to item 9A, which is the financial update. And that's over to you, Amanda, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Bowen, perhaps if you could share my screen, please. So I've obviously as is the practice now, I'm bringing a financial update to every committee to effectively provide you with, I guess, a high-level oversight on the activity in terms of financial arrangements and financial position of the authority to each committee, so you can see that from a sort of an oversight and control point of view, notwithstanding obviously you get a range of other reports that might be pertaining to financial systems or whatever. So this is the report then for this committee. It's not particularly long in terms of the presentation because we only had a recent committee a short while ago, so therefore this slide deck just gives you the relevant information in terms of what's happened since that previous time. But I guess there are key information really relates to the revenue and the capital outturns for 24-25. The statement of accounts are currently being prepared, and in fact today I'll be signing the statement of accounts and we'll be submitting them for audit in accordance with the statutory deadlines, etc. But this slide just really sets out the high-level information about the likely outturn position, which will be presented in those accounts, and a detailed report on the outturn position will be going to the Finance and Resources Committee in early August. But essentially, in terms of revenue, it's a positive position in that we have a financial surplus in year. So what I mean by that then is obviously income in excess of our expenditure of around £700,000, and that's made up of sort of two elements in a way. One, we haven't drawn down £400,000 that was previously planned as being drawn down from our reserve. So effectively, we've saved that, and then we've contributed a further 300,000. So effectively, we've had a net benefit in our reserve position from our expected reserve position of around £700,000. Just to highlight though how the sort of budget or the outturn looks in broad terms, and obviously this picks up and has been reported previously in the quarter monitoring reports through the year, but it is worrying in overall terms that our services in 24-25 are over budget by around £8 million, and that is largely in 4 places. So essentially, the bulk of it is in social care. There's also our environment, roads and facilities service is overspent, housing and homelessness in particular, and our home to school transport. And those 4 services are overspent, and I hesitate to use the phrase overspent because that implies some wrongdoing in the context of spending more than your budget. Essentially, the demand for those services has outstripped the cash we have for those services. So essentially, it is expenditure more than the budget funded, rather than overspending, if you see what I mean. But they're overspent by around 8.1 million. Other services have underspent, and that's effectively brought that net position back to that 8 million. I guess, I'll just go on to say how we've come to that net position, but I'll just talk about the service overspend in a minute as well. But essentially then, in 24-25, given that the services are overspent by 8 million, but I'm saying we've got a surplus of 700,000, how that has worked through then is in the year, we have had additional one-off funding from Welsh Government of around 4.3 million. About 3 million of that we were aware of in the Q3 monitoring report, and that was reported in that report. And then we had some very last minute money. It was something like the 24th of March, another £1 million odd, which has helped that position. We also had during the year some one-off money to do with a North Wales waste situation that we're in to do with Park Adver, and effectively there was some refinancing of that deal, and all of the local authorities involved in it, all the North Wales local authorities except Wrexham are part of that partnership, and all of those local authorities had a one-off financial gain from the refinancing of that deal, and we had about 1.5 million. We also have had savings on corporate energy budgets. Fortunately, energy, albeit still expensive, has come down from its peak a couple of years ago, and the savings on that. And we also had some additional shared prosperity money. So all of that in net terms then has brought us back to that surplus of around 700,000. Also, though, which is of positive, is we have, and again, this has been discussed a number of occasions at this committee, and certainly at Finance and Resources Committee. I have also transferred the underspend, for want of a better phrase, on capital financing costs to general balances of 2.362 million. So that has also gone into reserve. I draw attention to that specifically because it's something that's been discussed at this committee a number of times. Councillor Gareth has raised it previously at this committee about our lack of planning through our budget process to build reserves. And what I have highlighted previously, both at this committee and in Finance and Resources, and in fact through the budget reports, is that whilst we have not been able to make a permanent budget provision to build reserves, that we would take one-off opportunities to build reserves. And one of the areas that I've highlighted that we could do that is by the fact that we're budgeting for the full cost of the capital financing costs of the capital programme that's been put in place But obviously, until that capital programme is actually spent, we don't incur those costs. So there's a lag on the incurring of the costs. And what that means is that in the short term, when there is the underspend, because we've budgeted for it, but it's not yet arrived as a cost, we're able to put that into balances. And that's what I've done there. So essentially, in addition to the surplus of 700,000, I've also transferred, as part of closing the accounts, 2.36 million into reserves specifically for that purpose. So at the end of the financial year, our general balances will be standing at around £7 million, which is an improved position. Obviously, still not as high as we would want. If you take the sort of good practice estimate of 5% of your net budget, it's not as high as that. But nonetheless, a movement in the right direction. When the detailed outturn report goes to the Finance and Resources Committee and then on to Cabinet, further decisions can potentially be taken about the use of our earmarked reserves and whether they're all needed and whether we can transfer back into general balances some of those, and that'll be discussed and debated at those committees. Just a couple of other high-level information in terms of sort of, in a way, the revenue outturn, which is relevant, is we, as an authority, collected 96.7% of our council tax, which is, we had the fourth highest collection in Wales. It is a little bit behind where it was in the previous year, and that is a trend that's being seen across Wales, obviously with cost of living, etc. All collection rates across Wales are starting to dip, and obviously it's a focus of ours in terms of trying to ensure that we then do go on to collect that debt in due course. And in terms of NNDR, although we don't keep the business rates that we collect, they go into a national pool, which are then redistributed to us as part of the settlement. But we nonetheless, it's important that we collect the business rates on behalf of Wales. And again, we had a 98.4% collection rate for business rates, which was the third in Wales. So, I really must take advantage of the opportunity to commend the council tax revenues benefits teams for all of their work in terms of the collections for I say, council tax and business rates. Moving on to the capital outturn. The capital spend in 24-25 is just shy of around £40 million, and that is been financed by borrowing of just shy of 13 million, capital reserves of a bit less than £500,000, and some capital receipts also, and then actually the vast majority of our capital spend is actually financed by capital grants, which is obviously very positive. In the context of the borrowing at 13 million, that's in line with the borrowing assumptions that we have through our capital strategy and our treasury management reports that you see separately. So just to confirm that position, and again, when the outturn on capital comes through, again, there will be decisions really around what of the capital budgets that weren't spent in the year, which will be carried forward, what ones will be approved for being carried forward, etc., and or whether any others are terminated in some way to reduce the burden. But that'll be part of the outturn reports. Moving then on to, I guess, some wider stuff in terms of an update for you as a committee in terms of what we're doing. So I outlined in detail last time the work that was going on in terms of the resilience plan and the various work we still are doing with SIPFA and the strategic budget groups and a whole range of other activity that's going on. As I say, you had that update last time, but some specific things that have happened in the meantime. My apology, just to bring you up to date on. So member budget working groups have now been scheduled, and there are two lots of member working groups to consider services and budgets. So there are some in July, which will be sort of taking members through some of the detailed budget information in relation to each of the services. And then there'll be a second budget working group in October, which will then be coming back with proposals for changes and savings, etc. We also you'll be aware that we are doing, as many others are, considering the use of various digital and AI solutions that are out there in the market. So we're currently evaluating a number of solutions, and in particular Copilot, which I'm sure you've heard of, and Magic Notes. I think Magic Notes, which is again a similar to Copilot, but essentially it allows you to record meetings, and it provides then transcripts and summary notes on the back of that. And I think we believe that has got potential for efficiency savings. We're also looking at Q routes, which is around homeschool transport. So a number of IT solutions, as I say, are being evaluated and piloted. We've just recently also engaged a company to do a detailed fees and charges review for us across the authority. I think this is something we've probably touched on at this committee in the past. But the intention of this fees and charges work will be to be doing a thorough review and benchmarking where we are as an authority compared to others around charging and level of charging. It will also be facilitating a detailed corporate policy on fees and charges, which we probably don't have in place at the moment, and also ensuring that we have a detailed fees and charges database, for want of a better word, that we can obviously then make sure that we corporately review and update on an annual basis. So we believe that hopefully that has got the potential to identify opportunities for us to generate further income in the future. And we're also continuing work with SITFA, and they're going to be doing some specific work around some analysis about schools, and asking various questions around some of our understanding of data and comparisons with others, etc., across the school platform. So that will hopefully be useful. I'm also obviously working on and updating the medium-term financial plan, and we are also in the midst of collating, I guess, the capital demands landscape. I'm very aware that we have a whole range of activity going on, ambitions around schools, ambitions around depots, ambitions around all sorts of different things across the authority. And I guess what my concern is that we're considering those in a quasi piecemeal way, and we need really, or members need to consider them collectively to ensure that then effectively their priorities are being considered and taken forward. So that's the sort of current work that we're undertaking, as I say, but yeah, quite a short update at this point, but hopefully it's been useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amanda. And congratulations on meeting the 30th of June deadline that you had. Well done. Now, can I ask for any observations or questions on Amanda's presentation, please? Nigel. Sorry, Nigel. Apparently Phil was first.
Thank you, Chair. I just got a couple of questions. It's very pleasing to see that our general balances have got to 7 million. Does that include service balances, or are they sort of extra on top, if you like?
Yeah, earmark reserves are extra on top.
Okay, so our actual balances are probably quite a lot higher than 7 million then.
Yeah, absolutely. At the time I did the slides, I didn't have the final figures, which is why I didn't put them in. I think in overall broad terms, our balances, including capital balances, are around 50 million. including schools and everything. So I'm not 100% sure what our earmarked plus general balances are, but I would estimate they're probably in around the sort of 25 million league. But of those, obviously that would include things like the insurance reserve and things which, in a way, you need. So I'll update you properly at the next committee. But I would guess our cashable reserves, if you were to draw them all in, might be in the region of around sort of 15 to 20 million.
Okay, thank you. I noticed in another item on the agenda, it was discussing or giving a list of properties we might be looking to offload. So I was wondering whether you're expecting to see a big increase in capital receipts to help bolster the capital programme.
Obviously, there's been a number of various items progressed in the context of realising. Have I gone off? No. Realising capital receipts, for land or buildings, I say that are surplus to requirements. So obviously, as they come forward, that can, as you say, be used to bolster the capital receipts. I think what we need to consider, and it comes back to that point about collating that sort of big picture stuff around what are the capital ambitions for the future, is I guess we've then got to consider how best to utilise those in terms of getting the biggest return, I guess, for the investment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Amanda. Nigel, do you still have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Amanda, thank you for the update and inclusion of the additional capital programme slides. I very much support the line that Gareth is going in terms of one-off transfers into reserves. Of course, each and every time would be supported. Couple of questions for you. The first on a note on the fees and charges review progress being made by getting a third party involved. Have you got an end date that you've given them to complete the fees and charges review? The second is, when are you likely to have completed your medium-term update on the medium-term financial plan? And the final third one is, where are we and what's happening in terms of lobbying of Welsh Government in relation to the more fundamental issues about finance and the allocation process and the distribution of funds, which is the overall and basically underpinning issue that we're trying to deal with across local government generally? Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Nigel. So just in terms of the fees and charges, we're currently in the process of collating information for them, and we anticipate that they will undertake the work in around a 3-month period. So hopefully, by well in advance of our consideration in the context of setting next year's budget. A short, sharp piece of work with hopefully useful outcomes. In terms of medium-term financial plan, currently looking to update that, as I say, with a view really to that again, obviously setting the context for the budget round next year. I think the area I guess the gap, in one sense, with the medium-term financial plan, it's the easy bit, for want of a better word, is actually projecting what the the shortfall, the resource shortfall is. The difficult bit is identifying how you're then going to close that gap. So that bit of the work obviously continues and is longer term, and there is a resilience strategy that will be coming forward in the comparatively near future. I'm not completely au fait on the deadline. Fran was here at one point, but she doesn't appear to be here now. But that'll be coming forward, and that in a way is then looking much more at how do you solve the problem, as opposed to just identify the problem. But certainly in the context of identifying the problem and updating where we are, and obviously we're expecting later in the year some more information from Welsh Government about its plans in light of the recent spending review from UK Government, and that obviously can feed in. So that work, as I say, will take place over the summer and feed into the budget round this coming autumn, and the report will be brought forward at a suitable time as part of that process. In terms of the bigger picture, the lobbying of Welsh Government in the context of the formula and its fairness for Conwy continues certainly, and I believe, in fairness to Councillor Charlie, I think he has been, I think he will say he bores himself on the topic, but I think he has, in fairness, made significant headway, I think, in it being acknowledged and recognised that I wouldn't like to say it's been recognised that it's time for a review, because I'm not sure it necessarily has, but I guess it's been recognised that it's something that people are talking about, which is, whilst it sounds scant progress, I think it is progress. I think the difficulty is, and clearly, from my own perspective of talking to Welsh Government officials, of course, what they will say is that every local authority complains about the formula, and therefore trying to, I think the more fundamental problem, isn't it, is that actually the formula is one issue, but the size of the cake is probably the biggest issue. And you can change the formula, and that might help Conwy, but it'll then disadvantage another authority if the size of the cake itself doesn't go bigger. So the size of the cake is probably the more fundamental problem. I am aware also, though, that I understand, and obviously this is a political. These are political matters, not for me as an officer, but I am aware in the context of the Senedd elections that I understand that some parties may well be including consideration about the need to review the formula in their manifestos. I don't know whether that will turn out to be the case or not, and where that would lead. But yeah, so I appreciate I'm rambling a little bit, Nigel, but I think what I'm trying to say is I think there's a degree of traction being got. Is it going to be a quick fix? Absolutely not. And therefore we will need to continue to do everything we can to manage our financial position as it stands, whilst continuing to lobby and work with Welsh Government around that longer term picture. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Amanda. Phil?
Thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on Nigel's point about the fees and charges, given the local grumbles about car parking, about leisure centre fees, how elastic do you think the demand is that allow you to raise the fees in any significant way?
Well, I guess that's part of the review, isn't it? And I think we need to. Yeah, I think whatever proposals may come forward, I think they, first of all, they may highlight areas where we're not perhaps charging and others are, and therefore that might be an area we need to consider. And I think then it will also highlight where we are charging, but we may appear to be charging less than others. And I think in the context of that, I don't see that we'll get a proposal and we just implement it because it's a proposal. I think we will then need to, as you say, actively consider the impact on residents, how elastic or inelastic certain fees and charges are, and pitch it. I mean, interestingly, in the context of leisure fees, for instance, we have done some recent adjustments to the leisure fees because we had a range of legacy fees, and we wanted to bring that bring them up to date to make sure that everybody was paying the same rates, from a fairness point of view, if nothing else. And what's resulted from that is, whilst we do now have fewer members, the actual income that we're generating it hasn't fallen away. So essentially, what it showed, I guess, was that it was a bit more elastic than it might have been perceived beforehand. So I think we're going to have to properly consider the economics of that. And I know, I'm pointing to Andy when, in fairness, I'm about to refer to a conversation with Geraint rather than Andy. But I know I've had conversations with Geraint, for instance, about the fees around the tram. And there comes a point where, if you go too expensive, then clearly your trade will fall off significantly because people will think it's not affordable. So I think for all of the fee proposals that we might be given, we'll need to take a detailed consideration of that. But we are still of the view we've undertaken the work because the evidence of the people we've engaged shows that in most local authorities they've worked with, they've been able to identify scope to generate more fees across the piece persistently, and in that sense, we're hoping that will be the outcome here as well.
Thank you. Councillor Liz.
Thank you as always for your clarity, which really helps me financially. You say that you're going to be doing further work with SIPFA with schools. Can I ask you, what will the focus of the work be, please?
It's currently being properly determined, but I think the work that we're seeking to design is around really trying to do some data analysis around a range of data across our schools. Around what their budget is, what the pupil teacher ratios are, to try and, I guess, tease out those things about, well, why is one school that appears to be very similar to another school doing okay and the other school's not doing okay? What are the factors that might be leading to that? I think within it we would also be looking to see whether elements of the way we have the school's formula works. For instance, you'll be aware, I'm sure, that within the school formula there is a small school protection, but actually pretty much 90% of schools are classed as small schools. So it's a bit of an odd. No, I'm not saying it's not appropriate, but I guess the point is do we understand that if we tweaked certain things within the formula, how would that impact on individual schools, and might that be a better distribution than others? So it's going to be predominantly data focused, with a view to us trying to hopefully see some of these anomalies and help us understand a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Are there any more questions or observations? No. So we're being asked to note the current position and the work being undertaken to manage the council's financial position. In that regard, please can I ask for a proposer in support? Thank you, Phil. And a seconder, please. Councillor Liz, thank you. And finally, can I ask you all to vote? We're voting electronically again. Okay, can we close the vote, please? Once again, that's unanimous. So thank you very much, and thank you, Amanda. So now we're moving on to YOLO's slot. Item 10A on our agenda, which is the performance self-assessment for the period October 24 to March 25. Over to you, YOLO. Thank you.
Diolch Marianne. Good morning, Pawb. I'll try and keep the presentations brief, appreciating I've got a bit of a queue of items for you here this morning. So the performance self-assessment first up. Members will be familiar with this report by now. It's a report I bring to you 6 monthly. However, this year-end report has a little spice of difference to it. Appendix 1 is hopefully a helpful summary, and it does cover the whole year, not just the period October to March, which is what Appendix 2 is mainly concerned with. But also this time of particular interest to governance and audit will be Appendix 3. For the first time, we're including here the External Regulatory Compliance Report, which the committee will be aware usually comes as a separate item. We've done a lot of work around this in producing Appendix 3. And in doing so, sort of the realization dawned on me, we've got 25 audits as an authority trailing behind us, and over 60 actions, and it sort of hit me that that's quite an unsustainable position. And we've done a lot of work to really look closely at all the actions that we've agreed at, and the message has gone out to the business managers in the service to be quite judicious and stringent in the updates that they're providing here, and to make an assessment whether or not the actions are still relevant as well, because obviously times have changed, and we're all very familiar with the financial context. Things we may have committed to 5 years ago are probably no longer reasonable. So we've done a lot of good work there to try and bring it more under control. And going forward, I'm hopeful that when we get it to a more manageable set, we can incorporate it into the main report. Therefore, all performance information will be in one place. And actually, to be fair, a lot of the actions in Appendix 3 are already in the framework for the corporate plan. So, there's duplication going on at the moment. So we're looking to streamline all of that. So the purpose of bringing these documents to the Governance and Audit Committee is, under the Local Government Elections Act, Governance and Audit plays a role in confirming the conclusions of the assessment. But also, of course, the committee will want assurance as to the whole process that we have around forming our self-assessment. So it's not here to scrutinise performance per se. It'll have that privilege on Monday when we go to the Finance and Resources Overview and Scrutiny Committee. That said, this being its first airing, I would just like to preempt some questions potentially where things have been highlighted red. One issue particularly that's become clear in this report is our measure around safeguarding. Members have previously flagged this through committee with us, and I have to say it hasn't improved in terms of the data we're putting forward, but we now understand better the reasons why the data is presenting as it is. So the latest data shows us at 51% as at the end of the year. So there are several strands at the moment that we've discovered with this measure. Firstly, within education, there are, I don't want to give any impression in this forum that there isn't appropriate safeguarding training taking place in education. I want to be very clear about that. In fact, education are probably more experienced in safeguarding training than all areas. So I think within education there are 4 safeguarding modules that staff have to undertake. Our suspicion is that the measure at the moment is only actually picking up on one of those modules. So that's the first problem. Second problem is because the training is taking place obviously within education settings, it's not automatically, that data is not automatically being fed into our system. There is a manual process required where spreadsheets are filled and data is inputted. So we think there's some data that's being missed there. And then also within education, we've got to bear in mind the cyclical nature of when training is done within education settings. Obviously, the school year runs from September to September, but there's a lag there that's being caused, we think, with our processes, which are financial year. And school staff will only do their training on designated training days, so it might be that that comes later within the reporting cycle. Another issue that we've picked up with the measure, we think, is around recording of casual staff. We've got a lot of staff who are provided through agencies. Now, of course, through their contract through the agencies, they should be undertaking safeguarding training. So we again suspect that that information isn't feeding into our measure. And then finally, I think the last section is we do acknowledge that there probably are some frontline service areas where safeguarding training has not been prioritised as it should be. The data has recently been discussed at the Corporate Safeguarding Board a couple of weeks ago, and the message is still very clear there that managers must prioritise the time for this training. It is very important. That message has not changed. But in summary, the measure is flawed, and we need to do further work to either fix it or replace it. And I know some work is taking place within education, particularly to look at presenting a more accurate picture of what staff are trained there. The other areas I just wanted to preempt, you'll see within the well-being chapter a number of red measures for social care. Again, I don't want to leave this room having created a panic that performance in social care is declining. That's not the case at all. Actually, if you look carefully at the targets that have been set, which we have presented within the tables, the targets are very, very stringent. Most of them are 100%. So, if you just achieve 99%, you're automatically in the red. So, rightly so, the service and the council have set ambitious targets around social care measures. The only other thing I wanted to note was my sincerest thanks to the team and officers who have contributed to the report. It is a big piece of work, but hopefully members find it informative and useful, particularly for informing your forward work plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Yolo. Are there any questions for Yolo? Councillor Liz.
Thank you. Safeguarding now has been a problem within education, or the actual not monitoring of it, but the way that you manage to count the figures. It's been a problem for a few years now, hasn't it? So I'm just wondering how long it's going to take to get it sorted out. Because it's a poor reflection on education, which maybe is a bit unfair.
Yeah, thank you for that. No, I would agree. I think when we look back at the historic data, and to be fair, councillors have flagged that consistently within committees that I've attended. So it's good that we've now finally had a good look under the hood of it. And in conversations that I've had with the head of education, I am not concerned about the picture that I've been given through her as to the amount of work that has taken place. We just need to go away and see if there's a better way of capturing it. As to how long that takes, I can't commit to anything today, but naturally I'd be eager to swap this measure out with something more meaningful as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Councillor Susan.
Diolch yn fawr. Just a quick question on the back of Councillor Liz's. Do we benchmark with other councils so that we can actually collate all our figures and reflect on theirs and see what they're doing different that maybe we can take advantage of? Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. So I'm pleased with this performance report because this one is the first performance report based on the new corporate plan. We've done a lot of work to look at nationally benchmarkable data that is fairly comparable with us. So there's a lot more benchmarkable data being brought forward here. That's not the end of it. I want to take it further as well as we continue our conversations with services year on year. But it is very difficult to find nationally published data that's regularly updated and is fairly comparable. That is a challenge. Again, we'll take that suggestion away, though, with regards to the safeguarding measure, particularly if there is any nationally comparable data there that's fair to look at.
Joel, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. And because I missed the section earlier, declaration in respect to being a member of the Denbighshire GAC, as this might come up at the moment. Yellow, obviously a lot of work, well done, but still a work in progress. I want to pick up your Appendix 3, which is the trail of audits you referred to, and in particular, go to page 176, item 10, cracks in the foundation. My concern in picking this one up, and it also relates to page 181, Sustainable Development, Brownfield Land and Empty Property, is I think that there is an opportunity here that potentially the authority is missing when looking at trying to make some connections. The first issue on section 10, it says green on track, yellow. Is green on track? It seems to me because you've moved a March 25 date to December 25. I mean, we can all do that in terms of moving dates. If we don't achieve something, so we move it on, therefore we do achieve it. So I just query whether that's actually happened here. And I know it's probably the service managers that are in charge of putting in the dates. But this cracks in the foundation report is quite a significant report, having regard to Grenfell discussions and having regard to the BBC Wales investigation of land contamination in North Wales and lead contamination, and that staffing issues generally affect the ability to recruit to building surveyor posts and quality building control or quantity surveying roles. And it's the same issue that you have in relation to 181 page in relation to the brownfield land and empty properties debate, that it seems to me, if you look in theory at tackling brownfield land along the Grenfell debate and the contamination of land debate, that's quite an important issue. But the ability to return empty buildings picks up some of the transformational project discussion that the authority is having and was referred to, for example, in terms of Amanda's earlier financial sustainability and going forward report. And I don't see the connection being made by the authority that tries to extract the benefits of linking the approach to both those two areas together. And I raise that on the basis that I know that University of Wrexham has a number of courses and relationships with at least one other authority whereby recruitment and placements and secondments has proved quite useful in relation to trying to ensure there is sufficient workforce capacity in these areas. And I wonder whether Conway ought not to go back and revisit that area to try and overcome some of the issues and speed up the performance on this area, because at the moment it's lost in, as you say, a considerable list of audits, and I think it's increasingly important and politically rising up the agenda having regard to some of the national issues that have been affecting the UK. So I just flag that back to say, is there more that can be done in this area, or please take it back to discuss with whoever the service leads are, because I don't think the connections have been made sufficiently to underpin the transformation agenda for the authority so far. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Yolo?
Thank you, Nigel. I'll just address first of all your query around the status that's been provided for the actions. This is obviously using the existing project evaluation methodology that the council uses. So green essentially means that there is no concern being raised that these actions can't be completed. That said, it is part of a conversation I'm imminently going to be having around the RAG statusing of both our measures and our activities. I think I've expressed previously that I would be keen to see the authority move from a 3 RAG status to a 4 RAG status, because then that at least gives you a little bit more scope. So I would suggest that then when dates have slipped, a yellow is perhaps more appropriate because you're clearly experiencing some obstacles. That aside, your main point, I understand entirely. It is an important point. I'm not sure I can give you a good answer to it at this point. It may be something that the committee feels is worth putting on a future forward work programme, or at least referring to scrutiny. I think the asset management strategy is coming to committees. Well, certainly on a forward work programme somewhere. The asset management strategy will be forthcoming, so it might be part of the considerations of that document that that feedback needs to be provided. In terms of the transformation programme, I'm looking hopefully at Amanda. I don't know if there's any concerns that Amanda wants to raise around how your query relates to the transformation programme.
So sorry, Nigel. So in the context of the how it fits in with the medium-term financial plan.
Well, I was thinking through you, Chair, Amanda. It's a statement, for example, if you go to page 181, the investment strategy has not been progressed, which is the head of the sustainable development, make best use of brownfield land and empty buildings. And I think you need that information, Amanda, fundamentally as part of your overall approach in terms of what we're doing in terms of raising capital receipts or disposal of empty property. But there appears to be a significant strategy element here missing at the moment. That was a query.
Yeah, so apologies, I wasn't, I was distracted slightly. So I think it's something that I would anticipate coming forward here as part of the asset management plan, effectively, because I think we need rightly to properly review really all of our assets and various holdings, and including our investment assets, because interestingly, in the context of when the financial statements come, so we have a range of investment properties, and I think, and again, it's something else that Gareth raised about, well, are we actually, if we're holding property for investment, are we actually getting a decent return off of them, or actually would we be better off not holding them in the way we are holding them and doing something else? So I think I'm certainly hoping that when the asset management strategy comes, that sort of wider consideration around the identification of surplus or non-operational assets and what we do with them and how we can generate capital receipts from them is something that will form part of that, because as you say, critical really in terms of establishing, and going back to the point Phil raised earlier, establishing what capital receipts we may have available to us for use, both actually for two purposes. Actually, one, to sustain our capital programme, but secondly, actually also in the short term to potentially use for revenue purposes, to use for driving efficiency, because there is a current capitalisation in order in place whereby we have the power to use capital receipts for revenue purposes if they lead and drive efficiency. So I think that's another area where we need to be, as you say, ensuring that we're generating receipts and then directing them for best effect. So I agree with you that it is an area that we probably have a gap in at the moment, but it is something that I think we're looking to fill with the asset management strategy that will be coming forward.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Yolo. Are there any more observations or questions? I have a couple, if you don't mind, Yolo. And sorry, I know that I raised quite a few during our pre-meeting briefing, but there's something, and I'm referring to page 151 now on service performance reviews, and there's still something worrying me a little bit about the proposed change in approach. I mean, I'm fully in support of sort of economising on the amount of work that's involved in setting up these meetings. But what I'm not sure about is what the other mechanisms that exist, and I'm quoting here, other mechanisms that exist to regularly review service performance. So can you just clarify that for me, please?
Yeah, no, so the service performance reviews should not be seen as a driver for services to be updating their performance information. We have, separate to the whole service performance review process, a system called CAMS, which we use to bring all of the data centrally from our services. So CAMS is used to monitor performance. So every service has their service plan built on there with key measures, activities that they have identified throughout the year. Those are all built within CAMS. Services also use CAMS to monitor their risk information, as well as audit compliance and also health and safety reporting separately. But in the main, all the key information that we require to fill in the performance self-assessment report that you have in front of you, also the later item on the corporate risk register, all of that has been compiled without the service performance reviews. So the system is working, it is ongoing. So services are prompted on a regular basis, please go into CAMS, update your data. My officers will then check, has that happened? If not, we will chase. And we will also give it a cursory sort of validation. If we think there's anything not quite right, we will query that with the service. And that all then feeds into the service performance reviews. Into the service performance assessment. The service performance reviews are an additionality. That is a separate opportunity to look deeper under the hood of how services are performing. So at those, the service plans will be presented with their performance information and the service risk registers. So it is an additionality to existing processes that, as far as I'm concerned, are working well. And I would add as well that we've just had a draft performance audit, which confirms that from Audit Wales.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And one final question, and this is on 184 now. So I'm on to appendix, I think it's appendix 3. And it's around recycling and waste management. The final item on that page talks about the democratic report for waste strategy will consider a longer term vision. Now, can I just confirm with you that that waste strategy for Conway that was drafted includes a longer term vision? And I only ask that because the recommendation is to sign this item off.
Yes, I can confirm that it does.
Okay, it's just that the wording doesn't specifically mention that. That's okay though, that's fine. So I can certainly support signing off of that. And, sorry, I do have one other concern, certainly a question. It's around the commissioning of older people's care home placements, local and regional report. So we've got the first item around the pre-placement agreements, which has an amended date. But there we are running with implied contracts, so we actually have no contractual cover. I'm just wondering why we given the background and the if you like the backdrop, why did we not extend the contract that was in place rather than just working on a so-called implied contract? So that's question. Maybe we should just cover that point first, and then I'll move on to my next item.
Yeah, I can't give any detail as to the specific history of this one. Obviously, the fact that it has been flagged as red, I think, is a fair position to be showing. The service has highlighted it as a risk area for us. I don't know if anyone else is aware of any of the. I can't see that there's anyone from social care on the call. I don't know if there's a specific ask from this committee that you would like me to go away and get further information on, but otherwise it will continue to be reported, obviously, to governance and audit through the table.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just raising a worry that we are working under I think a rather loose arrangement. So as long as the concern is minuted, then fine, and we can monitor that. Which leads me to my other point, which is around the need to strengthen partnership governance arrangements between councils and the university hospital. I remember some time ago now, a number of us attended a meeting where senior representatives of the health board were present, and I left that meeting feeling quite lifted and optimistic. And then, I see this, that there are still legal discussions going on, and etc., etc. Everything just seems to be dragging on around this relationship. And then I see recommend sign off. I'm just expressing a concern.
Can I just clarify, is that page 188?
Oh, sorry, it's page 188. Yes, I was just moving on to the next item.
Yes, I mean, this is the update, obviously, that I've had from the services. Again, I'm happy to go back and query that if the committee is of a view that the action shouldn't be signed off. We can bring an update next time.
I would certainly appreciate and I don't know if there's support from other committee members, but I would certainly appreciate some form of update on the current state of the relationship between the council and the health board, because this particular item has been in progress since February 2022, as was the one on the pre-placement agreement, and things just appear to drag on, and obviously things happen, but if things aren't formalised, then you can't necessarily be assured that everything is under control. Amanda.
Yeah, I guess I'd just make the observation really around. I think this was a specific recommendation from a report, quite a long time ago, which essentially was a recommendation which I'm not sure was ever achievable from us as a specific body, and that's why I think there was the agreement, or effectively as it's updated there, that effectively it was for each partner to ensure their governance arrangements. And so I think in a way what strikes me about this one is it's almost we're trying to solve something that we don't have the power to solve. And I'm not actually sure anymore whether the recommendation from February 22 still stands. You know, you're asking a little bit of a wider question around what is our relationship with Betsy Cadwallader. Well, you know, I guess, you know, I think there are, you know, and that there have been a number of questions raised by members across the authority about our relationships with Betsy Cadwallader, and Betsy Cadwallader came to the council last year to discuss that, and all members had opportunity to question them at that point and talk about that. So, you know, I think what, don't get me wrong, I absolutely understand. I absolutely understand why you're interested in our relationship, and certainly I think you know there are challenges for all sides in that, and obviously a lot of detailed work going on, particularly through social care, around our relationship to ensure that we have a productive and collaborative relationship with Betsy Cadwallader. But I'm not quite sure specifically in relation to that recommendation. It feels to me that it's morphing, that the ask is morphing into something that's not about that specific recommendation, and I'm therefore not quite sure what the audit committee's ask is in that context. You know, if we're morphing into a general, well, what's our ongoing relationship with Betsy like? Well, then, you know, maybe that needs to come from a different angle and with a different focus, rather than keeping an outdated recommendation limping along for some, you know, for a bigger picture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. I'm not morphing, although I'm tempted. Yeah. Basically, I'm coming from a point of view that when I see a recommendation, and there are a number of them, and probably I don't jump up and down enough now on about this, but when I see a recommendation and I see an update, and the update does not give me the comfort that I can support, recommend, sign off, then I will ask the question. Because if I feel that I'm being presented, and the committee is being presented, with a report that is saying recommend, signed off, and it's 30 pages, it's very easy to miss some that are inadvertently signed off. That's where I'm coming from. Yeah. But I can go further if I'm not going to morph, but I do have an underlying concern about why the relationship with the health board seems to go on as it does. They still owe us money, don't they? Or have they paid?
Well, I think in terms of our debt, our legitimate debtor invoices, and then I think generally speaking, they're actually in an okay position. We managed to recover. You know, I think a few years ago, and probably around the time this recommendation came up, we had a significant amount of historic debt that has now been settled. When I first came here, I managed to get that sorted. I think the ongoing issue, or I don't want to use the word issue, I think the ongoing debates are actually around agreements on new cases and the health contribution to those cases. So that's but as I say, that's a different issue around that this particular audit report that was picking up and addressing back in 22. But what I would say, and I think, you know, at the end of the day, both local authorities and health have got significant budgetary pressure and obviously need to ensure that they're happy, that they're contributing appropriately for their responsibilities, and we're contributing appropriately for our responsibilities. And there's a debate to be had around that. What I would say, however, is that I don't believe that Conwy's relationship with Betsy is any worse or better than any other North Wales authority. I think it's a consistent issue to the extent there is an issue across North Wales, because you've got a hugely complex organisation interacting with us as a local authority on challenging cases and challenging responsibilities that have got, I guess, a degree of blurred lines between them. I'm just not, and I absolutely agree with you, Ian. You're completely right to not want to let go when it appears that we haven't addressed recommendations. I absolutely get that as a general perspective, and I absolutely would never want to be trying to get you to not pursue those. But equally on this specific issue, I think it goes back to a report that was even about pool budgets. I think it might have been about originally, and I just feel it was a little bit of its time, and we're sort of trying to solve something that I'm not actually convinced we'll ever solve, or is even within our power to solve. And I think as a result of that, this is never going away because we're trying to solve something that isn't solvable in this context.
And you know, Yolo, that in the pre-meeting briefing, I raised one or two questions about the narrative not supporting the recommendation. And and every time the narrative is adjusted and it becomes completely clear. Now, you may say I'm being pernickety, etc., but we have a responsibility to be assured that things are happening as they should. So sorry if I have morphed a bit, but that's my general point. And sorry, Councillor Liz, because you have a question to raise.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really glad you raised the question, Ian, because it was something that I had written down here about the pre-placement agreement. But I think Amanda has given us a very good explanation as well, and having just stepped down from Cabinet for Children's Services, there have been some issues that have been of concern, and especially around these pre-placement agreements. But I think slowly we are getting there with the Health Board. And it depends on the different departments, the different bodies that we are working with within the Health Authority. But I would like to see with the pre-placement agreement that by December 2025, as it shares here, that we do get a report coming to tell us that some progress has been made in this area. We had a very good meeting not long ago when the Health Board came to meet with us. And I could tell from the questions that were raised by members at that time in that meeting that we are making progress, and we have to continue those meetings with the Health Board, because I think by having that continued engagement that we can make headway. But I'm glad that you raised it and that Amanda has given us a really good overall answer to it as well. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Liz. Thank you, Amanda. Are there any more? Councillor Chris, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me speak. Just going back to the service performance reviews that you were discussing a few minutes ago. We had a 6-monthly regular calendar event of an annual rolling programme, whatever you want to call it, of full service performance reviews. And we found that they were very resource intensive and also The attendance wasn't good. Officers would do a lot of preparation for these. There'd be a lot of officer time spent building up for them and then attending them, and not many elected members would come along. So we decided to switch that to annually, but have a 6-monthly session with the cabinet portfolio holder. I've just had mine with people and performance, where I met with all the service managers and we went through a SWOT analysis, and that's part of the assurance process. So just to reassure you, Chair, that we are. This is the first year doing this. I remember last year, I think in Sinead's audit and procurement, we had a full SPR in the February, and then we had another one in June. It was very onerous, wasn't it? And the value coming from it, considering the effort that was spent, was questionable. So this is where the new regime starts this year, and we'll be initiating the full program in September, I believe. Yola, that's when it starts. So just to give you that assurance, Chair. The other thing, as we were discussing our relationship and our combined working with Betsy Cadwallader, I would just like to remind you that we have got a statement of common ground with Betsy Cadwallader now. That was developed as part of the replacement local development plan process. And Alison Kemp came to Cabinet, and then we had the Chair and Chief Exec to full council, didn't we, Liz, in October? And then Social Care's had another visitation from them a few weeks ago. So this is something that we're taking very seriously, and we know there's a lot of work that's got to be done, particularly with primary care. So just to give you that reassurance as well, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Chris, for that assurance and clarification. Are there any more questions or observations? Okay. So, as a committee, we are being asked to confirm that we're assured that the council is meeting performance requirements, and in reviewing the draft report to offer any recommendations for changes to the report or actions that the council intends to take. I think we've made ourselves pretty clear on that, and Sally's minutes will record things accordingly. So please can I ask for a proposer in support of the self-assessment? Phil, thank you very much. And a seconder, Councillor Liz, thank you. And once again, we're voting electronically, so please can we open the vote, and I ask everyone to everyone's voted. Okay, we can close the vote, please. And once again, unanimous. So thank you very much, Yola. Now it's coming up for noon. Should we have a 10-minute break? Is everyone okay with a 10-minute break? We'll reconvene at 12:05. Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're a quorum again. Thank you. So now, moving on to item 11A of our agenda. And it's over to you, Yolo, to talk us through the annual governance statement 2024-25.
Thank you very much, Chair. So again, this will be a document that the Audit Committee is familiar with. This year there are some minor modifications and updates covering 24 to 25. First of all, obviously the document is now being presented in our accessible template, so hopefully it's quite an easy read. In my opinion, this is a wonderful document, actually. I having inherited it and looking at it carefully for the first time this year, it's a fantastic document for giving an overview of the whole council and how we work and the controls that we've got in place. So I actively encourage anyone who's new to the council to read it, because it's a great sort of induction document, actually. It follows the SIPFA guidance, which is worth underlining. And the key updates to it this time are that the table of the sources of assurance, we've just articulated that a bit more clearly to now very clearly show the assurance mechanism and then the output that we get from that mechanism. So we've just tidied that up a little bit. And then otherwise we've provided updates on the actions that were agreed in the previous annual governance statement covering 24 to 25. And then for 25 to 26, we've identified 7 new actions. Well, I say new, actually, most of them are a continuance, but nonetheless, there are 7 there identified for the year ahead. And those will be picked up as well within our performance self-assessment report. So the committee will get updates on those 6 monthly. Otherwise, happy to take questions.
Okay. Thank you, Yolo. Does anyone have any observations or questions on the annual governance statement? Michael's disappeared. Yeah. Nigel, you have a question?
Well, 2 questions, actually, Chair, for Yolo. Good document, Yolo. First question from me for you is that there would be some benefit in enabling the Standards Committee to see a draft of this document or for it to be formally consulted at their committee. Can you advise whether there's been any consultation, and if not, if that's something that you could take away and consider with colleagues to maybe ensure they are engaged in this AGS process, as issues around behaviour and culture are quite relevant to an AGS. The second question I have is probably something that Amanda would provide a view on. We did what I thought was quite a leading bit of good practice by stress testing our capital programme arrangements with Arlene Close. I see no reference in this document to that, and I wonder if that is a missed opportunity and comment should be made accordingly. Those are my 2 questions, Chair. Thank you, Yolo.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel. No, we have not consulted directly with the Standards Committee, so we can certainly take that away and have conversations there as to whether that's an appropriate addition. In terms of the stress test of the capital programme, again, I'm happy to include anything. I'm getting nods here from Amanda, so we'll liaise outside of the meeting to include something on the capital programme. Thanks.
Thank you, Yolo. And thank you, Nigel. 2 points that will be taken up. We've got those for the minutes, are we? Yep. Thank you. Phil.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Chair. I was reading this. There's quite a bit about achieving net zero. And I wondered, you seem to be amending it somehow to take out the value of carbon emissions by suppliers and things like that. But I wondered have we addressed the issue of our own consumption of power by putting more solar panels on roofs and windmills and things like that? Are we trying to make ourselves completely power free or power in any way? Because you said before in achieving the outturn, you'd save £2 million on electricity. Well, we could save a lot more on electricity if we had solar panels on all our roofs, couldn't we?
I think I'm not fully au fait with the work of the Climate Change Board, but obviously I'm aware that they have identified a programme of work to obviously help us achieve net zero, and that's one of the elements. Again, when I was talking about trying to collate all of our capital ambitions for the future, that's one of the ones there. One thing I would observe though is I think there's a range of activity going on specifically around saving energy in the context of decarbonisation. Both in terms of old equipment and also solar panels. I know through the use of the school improvement grant, we're doing quite a lot of work across the schools with that. Equally with leisure centres. In fact, just recently, Cabinet have approved a contract for a significant decarbonisation programme at Abergele Leisure Centre, and we're hoping also to attract further grants to do work at a couple of the other leisure centres. So I think there's quite a lot of activity going on anyway across the organisation around trying to the decarbonisation and as I say, I think the climate board's understanding of capital asset for the future sort of address it in a wider picture. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because if I can come back, it's just to spend to save, isn't it?
Thank you, Chair. Just to refill, give Phil a little bit more information. I'm actually on the Climate Change Board, probably Amanda already knows. And I know for a fact that they have been looking into this quite seriously. Some schools now have already had them. But unfortunately, Phil, not all buildings will be able to sustain a solar panel. So disappointingly enough, that is not a process that, regardless of whoever does it, until technology changes a little bit, not every item of building will be able to have something like this. But I know that they're looking into it sufficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Susan. Do we have any more questions or observations on the governance statement? No? Okay, so we have been asked to provide feedback on the content of the governance statement and the local code of governance and governance framework, and to recommend the report to Cabinet for approval, pending any amendments which Sally has noted or will note in the minutes. And Yola, I'm sure you've taken notice as well. So please can I ask for a proposer in support of the governance statement? Councillor Liz, thank you. And Councillor Michael, can I take that as seconding? Thank you. And now we need to vote electronically once again, please. I think we can close the vote now, please. So that is unanimous support, Yola. Thank you very much, everyone. And now we can move on to item 11B, which is the Corporate Risk Register Spring Review. And Yola, it's you once again.
last but not least, I'm quite excited to present this paper, but before I do, I do want to record first and foremost a big thank you to Janice, who I can see is online with us. Janice has done a terrific amount of work to bring forward the papers that we've got here before us, culmination of about 5 or 6 months of work. The report, the cover report, hopefully outlines the rationale behind everything that we've done as part of the latest review. The highlights, to cover them briefly, we've moved from a position where we had 2 separate registers, one recording 28 risks, another recording 12 issues. We've taken a really good, long, hard look at that to try and make it a more strategic document. We've had a lot of discussions with SLT, SMT, Cabinet, before bringing it for your input here at Governance and Audit. But the upshot is we've managed to reduce it to 17 more strategic risks, which actually, in doing the exercise as well, it highlighted that there were some gaps, believe it or not. Even though the last registers looked at some 40 items, there was nothing there specifically focused on the risk of there being legal action or fines against the authority. There was nothing there around new technology and what that means to us. So through the process, we've actually highlighted a couple of key areas. You'll see from the report we are recommending now that corporately we do not persist with a separate issues log. Corporately we will monitor our corporate risk register, but that's not to say that issues are still not an important part of our mechanism. Risk management is a collection of tools, and issues management is part of that. The message to services remains that if you find issues management helpful and useful, then continue to do so. But from a corporate perspective, when we're looking at these strategic risks, there's always a risk that an issue can get worse. So I think, thinking back to the previous documents, there was an issue there about ash dieback, which, yes, it is an issue, but there's still a risk of one of these trees falling and causing a health and safety incident. Just on the weekend, there was a 7-year-old girl, unfortunately, killed from a falling tree. And those incidences are happening quite regularly when you monitor it. So we've taken a more strategic approach in that regard, I think. But that's not to say that issues aren't being monitored either. The corporate risk register is a valid tool to monitor issues, but there are also other means, the wellbeing assessment being one of them, that captures particularly issues and challenges that face our communities. And then more broadly, you have the national risk register as well. So the other changes that we've brought forward with this review is that strategic directors supported by heads of service will have risk ownership now of the risks, and there will be regular deep dives performed by the senior leadership, the strategic leadership team, through their meetings. So we've scheduled already the first 4 of those, so I'm looking forward to those conversations. And then the final sort of element that we've really looked closely at with this is around the scoring. So we've really tried to be consistent in our approach to scoring risks. Red risks are usually reserved for the most serious critical risks that we have, usually resulting from death or injury, or where reputation is irrecoverable. So with that sort of lens, we've tried to be a bit more consistent in terms of how we score the inherent and residual of all of these. That said, of course, this is our most serious risk register, so it's not inappropriate or inconsistent that the majority of what we have left over are scoring as red critical risks. The next steps that we have will be pending input from democracy. We will then be looking to update our corporate risk framework. So we'll be bringing that to the committee hopefully in October. So that will articulate more clearly the changes that we've made to the process, and also hopefully bringing forward some further suggestions for improvement. We just haven't tried to lump them all in with this review one step at a time. So that there will be some further considerations in October for the committee as well. Otherwise, I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Eula. Can I just express my thanks? You've had 3 significant reports to present today, and I think they've been, and I thank Janice as well, because an incredible amount of work, and they're much easier to read through, more user-friendly, reader-friendly than in the past. Natural progression of improvement, so thank you very much. Now, does anyone have any observations or questions on the risk register, please? Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. Yolo, I thought this was a brilliant report. Well done to you and Janice. And it crossed the Rubicon by deleting the issues register, which was fundamental to unpicking a more meaningful approach to the corporate risk register. So well done on that. The issues I have are more with how you've got the current 17 risks allocated on the risk register. That I think that if you did a second rinse on this wash, Yolo, you'd be able to reduce the number of risks on that corporate risk register further. There are some detailed stuff which I'll send you a note outside of the meeting on, Yolo, but I think there is an ability to combine several of your current risks and to tweak some of the wording, which reduces the number that the council will need and have to follow through on. If you're willing to do that, I don't want to take up committee time today necessarily doing it, and I know that you're going back to revise and re-edit. I will send you those through. I think the scoring mechanism and the use of the 4 rather than the 3 in terms of RAG and stuff is also to be supported. I think you do need to have direction of travel shown somewhere on the risks. In other words, are things getting better? Are they getting worse? Or are they staying the same from the last review point? And that needs to be shown somewhere. And I don't know whether it's on the later appendix and you can amend the landscape table. However you do it, Yolo, I think that would really benefit and provide some sort of simple narrative as to what's happening in relation to the change. And then the final comment I'd make is you do need to be ruthless. It's a bit similar, I think, to maybe some of the issues and debate we had about recommendations on the previous report that the chair was talking about. You need to be quite ruthless in how many issues / risks end up included in the risk register and summary. And you need to be quite disciplined about the wording that is used. Multiple use of the same wording is not helpful when trying to refer to specific items or titles. So you need to be wordsmithy inventive, I think, to try and clarify the distinction and differences between some of the issues under professional or managerial or political and legislative. So those are sort of the headline points that stand out when anybody has a cursory review of the risk summary register. And a risk summary, as short as you can do it, on the front would be ideal. But overall, brilliant report, and I'm really chuffed that you've got there in much quicker time than I thought you would. So well done to you and Janice.
Thank you, Nigel. That's very, very kind feedback. We have had a lot of fun with it, I have to say, and as you say, it is the first rinse. There will be many more reviews to come, and yes, please do send me your suggestions for further reductions. We'll have a look at those outside the meeting. Your comment about trend is important. So within the risk summary currently on page 273, the far right-hand column there, we've started to introduce a trend column. But at the moment, with this review, it's not very sophisticated. It is purely based on whether or not we've improved from the residual, from the inherent to the residual score. Going forward, that will be an assessment made by the risk owners as to whether they feel things are improving or not. So sorry, I got cut off. You might actually have a situation where a score hasn't changed, but the risk owner might be aware that there's something that's on the horizon. So, you know, the trend might be a bit more sensitive and a bit more reactive in that regard. But otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you, Yolo. Any more observations or questions? Oh. Phil, you have a question.
Oh, I must turn the lights off.
No,
Thank you, Chair. No, I just, it's not a question, it's just a comment. I just feel it's a much better report. It was easy to read and it does concentrate on the important things. So whether or not you can reduce the number, it's a much better than 28 with whatever it was issues. So well done, yeah.
Okay, if there are no more questions or observations, as a committee, we're being asked to consider the content and the changes that have been made following the review that's been undertaken, and we're being asked to recommend the report to Cabinet. Do I have a proposer, please, in support of that? Phil, thank you very much. And a seconder, please. Councillor Michael, thank you. And finally, for the final time today, an electronic vote, please, in support or not. I think we can close the vote, please. And it's unanimous support, Yolo. So thank you all very much. And we've got finished quite efficiently. So thank you for that. Thank you, everyone. And we'll speak again in, I think it's September.